I am so excited. Why? DAC is back. Remember TAC, right? They made awesome reel-to-reels. Currently have the TAC AI 303. I don't think there's any artificial intelligence. I think it's just AI. Probably the I is for integrated amp. Currently have these in the living room hooked up to my TV because it has HDMI eARC. eARC, that's right. Hooked up to the KEF LS50s. Sorry. Oh, the amp's not gonna work on the KEF LS50s? It sounds good though. This is the best the KEFs have sounded since I got them here. What do you mean I shouldn't have them in the living room? Where should I have them? Near field only? All right, I'm sorry. He hung up on me. That was a KEF LS50 apologist. He told me that the TAC, the new TAC integrated amp, doesn't have enough power to power the KEF LS50s. TAC was actually founded in 1953 as the Tokyo Electro Acoustic Company. In the 60s and 70s, they gained international recognition because of their reel-to-reels. But I think they're moving back to concentrate on two-channel. Anyway, I got this one sent to me, and TAC, that name, it just brings back so many good memories from the 80s and 90s. This is a pretty small footprint. It's bigger than most of the Chinese Class D amplifiers, built all out of metal. The volume knob feels kind of like a resin. It doesn't feel cheap and plasticky, but it's not metal, I don't think. Crossfeed knob's the same way. This kind of gives you the vibes of a vintage receiver with the way it's laid out and really the knob design. Then on the bottom, you have some really cool metal feet that are bolted in there. I'm not a huge fan of Class D amplification on more expensive products. And by the way, this comes in at $999. This uses Encore modules. They actually sound really good. Power output on this is only spec'd out at 25 watts per channel into 8 ohms, 50 watts per channel into 4 ohms.
That can't be right.
I don't think that matters. Why? Because this is the best amp I've had on the LS50s to make these things sound their best. Don't worry, it's not gonna fall over. It's built like a cinder block. Just took this out of the rack. This thing's putting off some heat. Speaker binding post right here, off-centered, which is cool. RCA1, RCA2 in. You have no phonostage, by the way, though. You have coaxial in for digital, optical in for digital, subwoofer out, then an HDMI eARC. I had this hooked up to my big TV, it worked flawlessly. Then a USB-C input right there. They say this has a Sabre DAC inside. What kind of Sabre DAC? I don't know. Sound-wise, little bit concerned when it only has 25 watts into 8 ohms because they say the KEFs are 8 ohms, but I don't know if I believe them. I think they're more like 4 or 6 ohms. I've had the KEFs hooked up to the Cambridge Audio Evo, the DeLorean version, which is absolutely wonderful. It is so cool looking, made out of stainless steel. Look at this. On paper, the Cambridge puts out way more power. The LS50s, of course, require a monumental amount of power to get the best out of them. But do they? Because out of all the amplifiers I've had the KEFs on, the TAC was the one that sounded the best with it. Or more importantly, the TAC amplifier made these snowflake speakers sound their best since they've been in my house. with 25 watts. This amp reminds me a lot of the Topping LA90, which is really punchy on the bottom, and I love that. This does not seem or sound like a low-powered amplifier. If anything, this sounds like an amp that has 200-300 watts on tap. It has this effortless bass. Also had no problem bringing the Emotiva XB2s to life at lower volumes. And I think that's a big takeaway for the LS50s, because everybody says it needs so much power all the time to get the best out of it. The TAC made these things more dynamic at lower volumes than any of the other amps I had on it. Everything else is just clean, well behaved on the top end. Not too digitally, not too harsh, very natural with punch. You can get more power out of the topping, but you're going to pay more because you're going to have to buy a DAC with it. This also has a motorized volume pot. So when you use the included remote, which looks like it's straight out of the 80s or 90s, which is awesome. If you use the included remote, it's actually turning up the pot on the amplifier itself, which I love because that is old school. I love a motorized pot. Headphone amp also has some interesting technology. Basically, the right and the left channel both have separate grounds, which is supposed to help with channel separation. I tried it. Sounds great. You also have the crossfeed knob, which you can adjust. The only headphone output ratings I found were 220 milliwatts into 32 ohms. So if you have a super hard to drive headphone, this probably isn't going to do it, but it's also not supposed to be able to drive the KEF LS50s with only 25 watts, but it does just fine on that too. So is TAC back, baby? I would say a resounding yes. 303 is way more dynamic than the Weem amp. Dare I say even more dynamic than the Cambridge Audio Evo. Evo has some other stuff going on which makes it awesome. I think they're marketing this as kind of a desktop amplifier. With the HDMI eARC though, I've got this thing in the living room and it's doing awesome. With a wireless subwoofer kit, I have my SVS SB1000 across the room, hooked up to the KEF LS50s, and it's doing an awesome job. If you are short on space, but you want very good fidelity, take a look at the TAC AI303. Not going to say it's better than the Weem amp. Well, it's my preference. I personally like the sound signature from the AI303 better than the Weem amp. LS50s on the Weem amp just seemed a little bit boxed in with their dynamics. Seemed like the bottom was cut off especially. I'm really impressed. $999 is a lot. There's obviously a lot of other products out there that do similar things and on paper say they have more power, but in real world usage, this 25 watts seems like 125 watts. Well done, TAC. I wish it was about $300 cheaper, but to be fair, I wish everything was $300 cheaper. This is way better, in my opinion, with my ears and my preferences, than any of the NAD amplifiers out there. Kind of reminds me of the sonics of the SVS Sound Bass Pro Plus, the latest generation. I think they've got some cool technology in here. If you want to know more about it, you can check it out, but I'm really impressed. Well done, TAC. Oh, and all you KEF LS50 apologists out there, you're wrong. You only need 25 watts, baby. Hello, this is the Chief Audio Man. Yes. I understand. The KEF LS50 apologist thinks that I'm a poo-poo head.